When you want someone to warm up the death ray, get dirt on the hero, or give your rivals a bad review on Yelp, you call the Part-Time Henchmen. I am Jeremy.
I'm Casey.
I'm Joanna.
And apparently
And I'm Joanna.
We're starting off by sharing the same body between some of my colleagues here.
Yes.
This
This is what happens when I make the plans and I don't listen to my own plan.
Yeah, you said I was second.
Yeah, this is why I'm in charge. We are a new comic book news and reviews podcast for DVS Gaming, and we're here just to dish the dirt and make sure that everybody knows what's going on. I'm not quite sure how to start. I'm from Los Angeles, California. Casey is from somewhere in Texas, one of the dirtier places, I imagine.
Southern Texas, San Antonio.
Definitely the dirtier places. Joanna, where are you from?
I'm in Dallas.
Oh, the cleaner places. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Hey, this is what happens when you ask me to be in charge. Before we get into the subject of the week, and actually into the news itself, I wanted to give a quick primer here so you know what kind of people you're listening to. Casey.
Yes, sir.
Marvel, DC, or independent?
Marvel.
Ooh, not the answer I expected, but okay. Joanna, same question.
That's hard. I'm actually 50-50 Marvel and DC.
Okay.
Ooh,
She
good,
swings
good.
both ways. Awesome.
Yes.
Wow, that was an eager answer. Okay, I'm definitely a Marvelite. I'm definitely a Marvel person. Okay, Casey?
Yes.
MCU or DCU?
MCU, without a doubt.
All right. Casey, Joanna?
MCU.
Yeah, I'm an MCU person myself. You know, Infinity War may have been dark and a bit dour, but at least they did it without being boring.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I freely admit that JLA definitely put me to sleep in the theater.
It didn't put me to sleep, but the weird part was I thought Batman v Superman was a better movie.
I did too.
You know, and that's only
I was
because
just watching Aquaman.
I thought BVS, at least when it went for it, it swung for the fences. It may have missed just about every ball, but it gave it a good hard try. Justice League was much more pedestrianly bad.
You know, there was aspects of Justice League I truly enjoyed. Like, pretty much everything that involved the Flash was gold.
Yeah.
Just like in B versus Superman, everything that Batman was involved in was gold, with obviously some grumblings about how he dispatched certain people. I think that Ben Affleck is the best Batman. Yes, I said it.
I don't think he's the best, but Batman v Superman for me, when it came to Ben Affleck, started badly only because his first scene was in that bizarre human trafficking house. And when that cop walked in on that guy that was handcuffed to the radiator or whatever it was, he didn't notice the 6-foot guy that was hiding in the corner of the ceiling.
Hey, you know, that's Batman. No one looks for Batman. That's how he stays invisible.
He didn't stay invisible. The cop had bad peripheral vision.
Hey, we had to see Batman. It wasn't important for the cop to see
If he had one good pair of glasses. This is the kind of stuff you're going to get. Just because we're more Marvel fans than not, doesn't mean we intentionally poo-poo on anybody else's work. There is some good stuff out there. It just may not be to everyone's flavor. That's usually the point.
I think what it really comes down for me, I think that DC has definitely mastered the iconic hero. You know, when I'm thinking about the bigger than life, the symbols for superheroes, you know, you think of the big holy trinity, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the basically gods in man form. Marvel masters the thought of the man becoming a hero and his adventures and his struggles, and I think that's probably why it's easier for me to relate to that.
Right.
Yeah, well, that starts the whole conversation as to who copied who. Are the X-Men copies of Doom Patrol? Is Deadpool a copy of Deathstroke? And things like that. And that can get a little bit messy.
Yeah, well, you know, if DC created it, that's great. If Marvel saw something there, like, let's make that infinitely better.
Yeah.
Then,
God, this is going to get such hate mail.
oh, come on, man. No one is walking around with Doom Patrol t-shirts.
Oh, you think?
They
You haven't
will
been to
now.
San Diego in a little while.
Yeah, maybe when the Titans TV series premieres, and that'll happen, because I noticed episode 4 or 5 is called Doom Patrol.
Yeah, but
Nice.
first we got to get through Hooker Starfire first.
You know, That is a hot button issue, and I've seen it go both ways because we both know that a superhero photo taken out of context can be completely different from the finished product.
That is absolutely true, but I have major concerns about a set photo that shows at least two characters that usually have skin tinted funny colors. In this case, there's no tint, no sign of any sort of makeup to allow a tint, no sign of any sort of motion capture. That leads me to think that that's what we're going to get.
Maybe not.
To me, those set photos. To me, those set photos didn't say that these are the next generation of hero. This says to me that Booster Gold looked up at the giant inflated face of Ganthet on a video screen, and Ganthet yelled down, "Get me a bunch of teenagers with attitude."
I'm gonna hold my judgment for the Teen Titans product when I see some finished stuff. And I saw Robin, I saw Hawk, I saw Dove. I liked what I saw. Pardon me. I thought the Robin looked sharp.
He liked what he saw so much he ate Dove and belched her up.
Exactly. I think Hawk and Dove's costumes look great. The usual standard for DC costume wear, which is that hard kind of rubberish look, but still flexible. It works, and I'm optimistic. That's what I'll say.
I find it hilarious that you said that, considering those looks were designed by the lady who did the original Iron Man armor into the 2008 film.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I do remember that footnote.
See,
well,
that's what happens when you actually read the news. As a matter of fact, we should probably just get to it. This could spin back and forth for a while. So we'll start here with Marvel comic book news. We'll talk about the mouse-owned company and their characters and intellectual properties headed for the comic book pages. And it looks like the comic books are going to mirror the movies a little closer than usual this time around. Have you been following an event called Infinity Countdown?
Vaguely, to be quite honest with you. Is that the direct movie?
No, Infinity
comic, or is that something?
Infinity Countdown is a new story in Marvel Comics where several of their characters either have or are seeking the Infinity Stones to rebuild the Infinity Gauntlet. The difference is, though, it appears the majority of them are not working together in any respect.
And I know that there's something going on with Wolverine, and he has one of the stones.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't?
As of issue 2 of Infinity Countdown, he actually left the Space Stone in a toilet tank for Natasha Romanoff to take care of.
Huh. Talk about passing the buck on that one.
Yeah, but think about how scary it is that you have a former Russian assassin who can now teleport into buildings and slice your throat.
Quite sure, quite sure. Oh, by the way, spoiler warning for anybody that's read Civil War, Black Widow didn't die.
Actually, she did, but that's a whole other story.
Okay.
Believe me, I've been following up on that, but that's not the reason why I brought all that up. The reason why I brought up Infinity Countdown is it's supposed to lead into another event that's recently been named as Infinity Wars. This is a story that's coming to the comic books, and no, it's not going to mirror the movies perfectly, except in one aspect. There's been a new ad that's been released for it, and the blurb at the top of the ad very plainly says, Thanos wins.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's going. The story's going to be written by Jerry Duggan. It's going to be art by Mike Deodato Jr.
Oh, Deodato. I think I like his stuff.
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm sending you guys an image of the ad itself, and it's pretty basic. It is Deodato's version of Thanos throwing his fists in the air like he's just won something. Mm-hmm. And it says that this event's supposed to begin in July 2018, which means probably there's going to be a major panel about it at San Diego Comic-Con. I would bet money on it at this point.
Yes. Wow, that actually rolls right into a small factoid that I was a little let down about, is the fact that Marvel Studios will not have a presence in San Diego Comic-Con this year.
I'm actually not that disappointed about it, because that means my Saturday frees up rather significantly.
Oh, that's right. You're a Hall H waiter, aren't you?
I'm generally not, but what was it, 2 years ago? It was my first time doing it. I was super excited. Last year, my family wanted to see it, so I did the exact same thing so I could stay with them. This year, I have no excuses. I could actually go see the Magicians and Expanse panels I've been missing for the past couple of years.
Ah, the Magicians.
Yeah.
There's another hotbed issue.
Well,
we won't get into the Magicians.
Well, I think it's hotbed because it's sexy, but that's a whole other thing. But that's not the
yeah.
only reveal in regards to the Infinity Wars. It's a brand new character that seems to have a major wanting to kill a number of characters in the Marvel Universe. They're called Requiem.
Requiem.
Yeah, their identity is a serious mystery. They're wearing head-to-toe armor and a mask that, if you look directly into their face, looks like a sideways Ouroboros. And
the Infinity logo, I'm looking at it right now. It's a nice set of armor, and that's clearly a woman.
Yeah, I sent you another image. The guess I have is that's a woman, but I'm not absolutely sure. This character has never been heard of before, as far as I'm aware. So this will be a character
this is the point where I admit to you that my my Skype's not showing me the images you're sending me, so you have to send it to Facebook.
Yeah, I'm too lazy for that. No, there is no information as to who Requiem is or what their motivation is, but the guess is that after Infinity Countdown, the Gauntlet will be much closer to assembly, so they'll probably want the same thing.
Wow. You know, if I was a guessing person, and I am, I would say Nebula?
That's a possibility. The character hasn't been heard in the comics for a little while now, but it's hard for me to say absolutely since I don't have the time to read every single thing published.
Yeah.
You know, and whoever does, congratulations to you, and I'm freaking jealous beyond belief.
Same here.
That is true. God, and if it isn't clear in this podcast, that I'm a little lagging behind in my reading, then it is now.
It's kind of sad because you can't say get off your ass and read comic books. Actually, the phrase should probably be sit on your ass and read some comic books.
And that was the weird thing today is people would message me on Facebook, hey, what are you doing? And it's like, I'm working. It's like, well, what are you doing? I'm sitting here powering through comics.
Which means he can only lift about 5 issues at a time. Casey's really weak.
Oh my god.
Hey, if you're going to pitch the softballs, I will knock them out.
Oh my god. Well, yes, I will definitely set them up. Yeah, I mean, I'm halfway through Avengers #1 as of this particular recording. Maybe I'll get a chance to finish it before you're done talking.
Actually, I like that you said that because Joanna, question for you.
Did we lose you?
Yes.
Oh.
No, I'm here.
Okay. Joanna, question for you.
Yes.
Loki is a character. What do you think of him?
Comics or movie?
Comics.
The Loki. I like him more in the movies.
Okay.
He's more true to his character, his nature, in the comic series.
Okay.
And he's more of just kind of a free agent in the movies. Like, yes, he's a trickster. You're not sure what side he's on. He's kind of the wild card. I mean, I like his personality movie-wise, but I like the fact that he's more true to the nature of the origin of the myth of Loki in the comics. Does that kind of answer?
Yeah, it does. And okay. I have to bring him up particularly because the writer of Marvel, Jason Aaron, he's currently working on the relaunch of Thor, and he's already started on the Avengers, which Casey is lazily reading about halfway through right now. And as it turns out, Loki is going to play a role in the first arc of both of those books.
That makes complete sense.
In an interview with CBR.com, Aaron said, quote, I don't know about right away, but certainly as things go along, you'll see a lot of connective tissue between the two books. It's been pretty clear where we're headed in Thor with the War of the Realms. There are some pretty big battles in the future, and you can definitely expect to see the Avengers get involved in that in some capacity. Yes, Loki is in fact part of this first arc. You can't really bring a team of Avengers together without Loki. He plays a part in both the first arc of the Avengers and the first arc in the new volume of Thor. Loki is up to a lot. These stories will kind of tie into everything he's been doing over in Jerry Duggan's Infinity minis and Doctor Strange, so we're going to look at everything he's been doing across all of these books, unquote.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to Loki, maybe some of the casual readers probably don't know this, but way back in the 60s when the Avengers were first put together, they were put together because of Loki's manipulations. So he's always been a part of a team's beginnings, and that's the reason why I was absolutely thrilled when the Avengers movie featured Loki so heavily.
Yeah. But some people, a lot of casual fans are not aware of is that Captain America is not a founding Avenger.
That's absolutely true. He showed up in issue 4.
Yeah, he's technically their first recruit. Speaking of the character himself, there's a comic book artist who's been around since the 80s who's actually going to be in the finale for Mark Waid's final issue on issue 703. Alan Davis is re-enlisting for the book.
Oh, Alan Davis.
He was the first artist on Excalibur, and he was big in the Marvel UK books.
And a personal favorite of mine, he was the artist for the first Wolverine Sabretooth cover fight.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah.
Davis is not doing the art alone, however. He's also helping out the regular artists on the series up to that point, Leonardo Romero. And it appears to be a future story. According to the solicits, quote, Jack Rogers is a wanted man on a desperate search for a cure to his son's fatal disease. And once it's found, a legend will be reborn, unquote.
Huh, I wonder what that's all about.
Well, it sounds like some distant relation of Steve Rogers in some unknown future.
Huh.
Interesting.
Why does
That is interesting.
I mean, his name is Jack Rogers. I don't know why the name Jack stands out to me so much, except for maybe Jack Flag.
Yeah, God, poor Jack Flag. He definitely did check out, didn't he?
Oh, he checked out hardcore.
Yeah, he did. For those listening, Jack Flag was a patriotic hero and one of the very first casualties of the Hydra Cap.
Yeah. Some people call him Steve-O Rogers.
What the hell is that all about?
Dude, I didn't make it up, but it's what the internet comes up with some names that are brilliant and others that are stupid. I will never forgive the people that came up with the name of Clore.
Oh, God, that's right.
Clone Thor. He became
Ragnarok.
known as Ragnarok later, but when he was first introduced in the Civil War, everyone called him Clore for some reason. I remember staring at that thinking, it sounds like you're starting to say, I drank chlorine, and then stopped at that last syllable just before you died.
Oh, and he killed a character that has been dead and still dead to this day.
Yep.
Goliath. What's Dr.
Black Goliath, Bill Foster.
Bill Foster, that's right, who is being played by Lawrence Fishburne.
Yep.
In the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie.
It's cute watching you try to flex.
Hey, you know, I've got some muscle here and there.
Okay. Well, what do you know about Peter Parker's immediate family?
Me or Joanna?
Anybody. Anybody can answer.
Okay. I know that his Aunt May is alive, his Uncle Ben is dead, his parents were spies for S.H.I.E.L.D., and they disappeared in a plane crash. I say disappeared because it's Marvel.
Okay. So, okay. Believe it or not, you're both apparently missing one.
You're not talking about the forced sister thing that popped up in the first story arc of Spectacular, are you?
According to Chip Zdarsky, it's not forced, and it's not supposed.
Really?
The character was revealed with some new evidence in Spectacular Spider-Man 302, and her name is Teresa Durand. According to the interview with CBR.com, Zdarsky said, quote, yeah, she's his sister. The time travel arc was a perfect spot for her to make the discovery, and now that she knows, she's got a little bit of what Jonah has. A desire to help Peter, whether he wants it or not, but whereas Joni will more than likely try to be unhelpful, Teresa is a skilled spy, so that may come in handy, unquote. For those that don't know, Teresa Durand is a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
Oh.
And let me guess, is she also the key, and is Glory looking for her?
Dude, as long as she doesn't have anything to do with Mephisto undoing his marriage, I don't care. No, in Spectacular Spider-Man 302, Teresa discovered a secret safe house that belonged to Richard and Mary Parker, Peter's parents, with documents containing her birth certificate and a picture of herself cradled in Mary's arms as a baby.
Huh.
So far, she hasn't told Peter, but she may at a future point.
Oh, of course. That's all going to come out in the wash.
Yeah. Let's just hope she doesn't go seeking a radioactive spider, because that would get messy.
Oh, we got plenty of those.
What else?
I say that with derision in my voice, and it's completely manufactured, because if another spider person were to show up, I would totally buy all those goddamn issues.
Okay. It's interesting that you said it in that format, because there is another spider person coming, but not on this not on this end of the Spider-Verse. This has to do with Eddie Brock and Venom.
Huh. Joanna, do you know something about this I don't?
No, there's lots of spider people.
Oh,
You were talking about Eddie Brock before, though, or
Yeah.
started to.
True. I'm talking about one of the more recent issues of Venom, number 164. It's called The Nativity. And
yes.
Eddie's been awoken with some bizarre dreams that are being emanated from his symbiote, which is kind of worrisome. Eddie's usually been either a firm partner or firmly in control of the symbiote, but apparently the symbiote has taken more of an active role in Eddie's brain recently. And
Yeah.
he's been having some serious pain that seems to be coming directly from the symbiote, and he hasn't been able to figure out what it means. Well, thanks to some of, I guess you could say, the co-stars or his more helpful members of his crew, he's found out that the symbiote is pregnant.
Again?
Yeah, please tell me it's not Carnage's.
Oh, God.
That
I
was
mean,
just-
so far we've had Carnage, Toxin, and Mayhem.
Well, here's the problem with this particular point. See, since the last time the symbiote has been technically pregnant, it has gone through a myriad of changes, hosts, a resetting of its biology, and a massive drugging of its biology on multiple occasions. And because of all these, the symbiote's pregnancy is apparently much harder on its host this time around. Eddie and the symbiote have to be separated during the term of the pregnancy. Otherwise, it could cause major damage to one or both of them.
Yeah, at this point, I think they probably have to do it that way, or people are just going to go, and shrug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it does appear that we're getting into another potential symbiote character coming to the fore. And I say potential. Eddie's being helped out by members of the Alchemax Corporation.
I think we've got plenty of symbiotes. I think... I think it kind of sucks that we're already shoving Mayhem to the background. And she's
Mayhem
only been around for like a couple of years.
Well, Mayhem has no symbiote. She technically isn't a part of this at this point.
I thought she got the symbiote back from Lee.
No, she did not. It had to be destroyed, actually, by the end of the Venom Incorporated.
Oh my god, my memory of that, is that screwed up about that?
That I've read. She still has Hellfire powers because of a whole other storyline, but yeah, she's no longer a symbiote character.
I do remember the Hellfire powers, so I thought that was a little weird.
Okay. Well, let's bounce into something else before we start lamenting spider people. I don't want to get all racist up in here. Okay, I was hoping that would elicit a laugh, but whatever. The Champions are going to get a brand new Marvel hero as of issue number 21. The character is... What?
No, go ahead. No, I heard something about this, but I heard that the character was a new one.
It is brand new. It's called Snowguard. It's going to be a teen girl of Inuit ancestry with the power to shapeshift and take on different animal traits. Her real name is going to be Amka Aliak, or Aliak. I probably butchered that entirely. She's going to gain her powers from an Inuit spirit force known as the Scylla, a concept taken from indigenous beliefs. The character is created by Jim Zub, and he consulted with Nyla Inuksuk, founder of the Toronto-based virtual reality production company Mixtape VR, who is also of Inuit descent.
I wonder if this is going to have any connection to Snowbird, which has similar origins and similar powers.
Similar name, too. This new character is called Snowguard, and some fans online have pointed out the weird similarities, but Zub has been rather cagey as to whether or not there's a connection between this character and any others out there.
That's fair. I mean, they're not really doing much with Snowbird right now anyway.
True enough.
I think that's disappointing.
According to Miss Inuksuk, quote, I was really excited to hear that there would be an Inuk superhero in the Marvel Universe. Inuit are oral storytellers, so our myths and legends are full of spirits and characters that take both human and animal forms. So I was excited to see how those elements could be interpreted within the structure of a graphic novel, unquote.
Oh, yeah. And she's got what appears to be, looks like a black, purple, and white kind of outfit.
Yeah, visually she's very different from Snowbird. I would like it better, I think, if the characters didn't have much of a relation, but then again, just about every member of the Champions is a legacy hero of one sort or another.
Right, and at the same time, them being a lot of legacy heroes, Champions has to be one of the most diverse super teams I've ever seen.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, the term legacy usually has to do with a character that has inherited or been given a mantle from another hero, whether they're living or dead.
In this case, we got, Cyclops, Spider-Man, Vision, Hulk.
We had Cyclops. He quit a couple issues ago.
Yeah.
But, the point is still there.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I won't miss him.
Sorry?
Yeah. I said, I mean, I won't miss him.
I liked him. I thought he was the only
I'm not a
tactician really
Cyclops
among the
fan.
crew.
You know, it's hard to be a Cyclops fan, Joe. It really is. I've tried, and I don't know, Bland Summers just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
I like him. The guy's a tactical genius, and he's one of the few guys that when he stands in the middle of a room, a lot of people look to him to lead. It's like during the House of M when Steve Rogers was unavailable, everybody looked to Scott Summers to lead the room.
Well, you know, in the efforts of being the ultimate and perfect leader, sometimes you sacrifice a lot of cool factor. I might be pissing off a couple of people, but I think the most boring turtle is Leonardo.
I don't know. Maybe he appeals to me because he's a lot like I am. He's an overthinker. His brain is constantly in motion.
Well, then at least he's got his audience.
Well, last up in Marvel comic news, it turns out we have to talk about another X-Men who made an appearance in a non-X-Men book.
Right.
You've been following the world of the Black Panther recently?
I've been following his appearances in other books, but not the title character, not the title itself.
Okay. In a recent storyline that was written by Ta-Nehisi Coates, Wakanda's been under siege on a spiritual basis from a newer god that called itself the Sefako. And it turns
Doesn't ring any bells.
Well, after a few issues, more specifically 172, we found out that the Sefako is not a new god or an old god of Wakanda, but it's something else entirely. It's an older Marvel character called the Adversary.
Oh, I definitely know the Adversary.
Yeah, it's a Native American trickster god that has run afoul of the X-Men on more than one occasion. And when you find out that your enemy is a god, you have to figure out a different way to attack it. And the Black Panther called in a few friends to try to help. But what he ended up leaning on was one young woman, of course, Aurora Monroe, who in Marvel Comics and several times in Africa has been worshipped as a goddess on Earth. And Marvel, on and off, has teased some kind of more mystical connection with Storm. There have been times that she's been worshipped by other characters. There's a couple times where she's been the goddess of thunder for Norse mythology. And as it turns out this time around, not only did she attack the adversary with lightning, but her powers were amplified by the prayers of the people in Wakanda.
Nice.
Huh.
So it looks like they're trying to push the mystical aspect again, as well as possibly rekindle the relationship between the two characters that hasn't been heard of since Avengers versus X-Men.
Yeah, true. I'm looking at a picture of the Adversary. This is Black Panther 172 we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay. God, I haven't seen Adversary since... Wow. So far back that I would date myself by actually talking about it.
I think the characters appeared subsequently, but I don't recall hearing about him since the Fall of the Mutants back in the 80s.
Yeah.
That's been
really
a good while.
It has been a good while. I have not seen him since he killed all the X-Men in Dallas, for all intents and purposes.
That was the Fall of the Mutants, as far as I know.
Yeah. I've seen him in some B storyline stuff for Forge. Especially during the Romita years.
Yeah.
But then after that, I haven't heard from him in a good decade and a half.
At this point, I'm not curious how this impacts the X-Men storyline. I'd like to know how the Black Panther goes forward. But then again, Ta-Nehisi Coates is about to stop working on the Black Panther. He's the one that's going to start writing the new Captain America series.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm still kind of scratching my head why a Native American god is messing with Wakanda, but hey, the magic of comics.
It wouldn't be the first time one mythology is hammered in on another inside Marvel Comics.
Yeah, those gods of death. What was the name of that crossover where all the gods of death got together and fought each other?
I want to say it was called the Pantheon War, but I'm not absolutely sure on that.
No, it was the one where you saw the underworld, and so you saw people...
Yeah, I remember. Hercules and Amadeus Cho were in the middle of it, but I don't remember the absolute details.
Yeah, that was during the Incredible Hercules series, which I loved. Man, if they could only bring that back, I'd read it, because Hulk is boring as hell.
Let's get into DC comic news. Let's talk about the other major company and their characters and storylines that are coming soon. I'm actually kind of disappointed that DC has stopped doing something recently.
What's that?
As of this past week, DC's no longer offering complimentary digital codes for its $3.99 cover price comics.
I saw that. Something that Marvel is still doing to this day.
Well, I mean, DC was pretty much, as far as I know, the first company that really did it. They started doing it in April 2017. What they did was they took 15 of their Rebirth run of comics. They increased their price from $2.99 to $3.99, but for that other dollar, you're getting a complimentary digital code. Well, they've removed the digital codes, but they also haven't reduced those cover prices.
Well, DC really tried hard to hold true to the $2.99 price point, and I know that they did it because they believe that would help in their competition with Marvel, who is all over the place as far as pricing, but a majority of their stuff is $3.99. A lot of New 52 titles stuck to $2.99, so I guess in an effort to validate to their readers why they were increasing at $3.99, they added that little code in there.
Well, there will still be occasional digital codes included, but they'll only be in first issues, some upcoming special events or select special events, and a few other issues. There have been no specific titles mentioned as to getting a digital code, though.
I don't think it's going to cripple them anytime soon. I still think it's a bad move.
Yeah, I didn't say it would cripple them. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know, I do think that the upcoming marriage between Batman and Catwoman, that will probably get a digital code, but still.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think they did digital codes for the Metal series, didn't they?
Yeah, but that ended before they stopped doing that promotion.
Yeah.
Also, when it comes to DC, I've been kind of thrown aback with the new Justice League Beyond series. Actually, I think it's called Justice League Odyssey, because going over the roster, one of the members of this new spacefaring team that's going to be based in one of Brainiac's old skull ships is Darkseid. The Master of Apocalypse will be a member of the Justice League, and ever since that was announced about a month ago, people have been scratching their heads saying, okay, how in the hell is that supposed to work?
And that was my first reaction to it, but, I mean, this is not the first time this has happened.
The thing is, though, I actually have an answer as to how that's supposed to work.
Hit me.
The answer came in the recent issue Wonder Woman, number 45. Wonder Woman and her brother were trying to start Darkseid's evil machinations at the time because the villain was taking Amazons and turning them into parademons.
Yep.
Which in itself was kind of terrifying. But to become himself again after being a baby for a long time, look it up, don't have time, it's as weird as it sounds, Darkseid went back to adulthood by consuming the power of Greek gods. And Wonder Woman reached out to the essences of those gods still within Darkseid. I know that sounded way too dirty and like fanfic stuff. But, you know, between that and some punching, she managed to get the powers of the gods to escape Darkseid. And as Zeus's power was coming out of Darkseid's body, again, I know that sounds very fanficky, he told Wonder Woman that he was proud of both herself and her brother. But they had to start Darkseid from doing something rather embarrassing at that point. He was imploding from the sudden loss of power. And the essence of the gods were free. I don't know if they reformed new bodies, but they're gone. Darkseid's daughter, Grail, was imprisoned by the Amazon, along with Ares. And it was shown in the final page there that Darkseid is alive, apparently much physically smaller than he used to be.
Yeah.
And he doesn't remember who he is. So basically, how he's going to be a Justice Leaguer is you have a classic, empty mind amnesia storyline.
Or something similar to that. I mean, didn't they do something fairly similar to that in X-Men with Apocalypse's clone?
Sort of, except Apocalypse's clone was raised from a child to be something new. We're talking about a full-grown Darkseid, maybe a little bit physically weaker, but he just plain doesn't remember who he is. Evan, or Genesis as they call him in the comic books, or Kid Apocalypse, depending on when, he was actually raised from a child in a virtual world. He knows exactly who he is and what he could be.
Right.
So, this is how Darkseid is going to be a Justice Leaguer after, I don't remember what it's called. I think it's called the No Surrender event.
I think you're right. I mean, I know that they're color coordinated, and that's actually how I caught wind of that. That
still bothers me to a certain degree, looking at Cyborg from head to toe red.
There are some costume choices on those that I'm not really thrilled with. I know what they're trying to do.
I mean, I know they're trying to make it special and everything, but it looks like this is the Justice League as coded by Pa's Easter eggs.
It just seems to me that X-Men has pulled this off a little better, and I don't think that it's a coincidence
sometimes yes, sometimes no. I remember the Giant X phase, and no, that was not a good look for anybody involved.
No, but
has anyone?
Go ahead.
Okay, has anyone read Batman White Knight?
I saw the first issue.
I need to sit down and read this because I'm extremely curious about a story where the Joker is actually well medicated and wants to make good in the world.
And Batman is the villain?
Yes. It was written and drawn by the same guy, Sean Gordon Murphy. White Knight recently ended with issue number 6, but Gordon Murphy said that he actually has an idea for another book within the same universe of the story he told. Batman White Knight doesn't take place in the regular DC universe. It's more of an Elseworlds type item.
Without the Elseworlds tag on, but hey, we both knew.
But according to a post on Twitter, he has a secret Batman project within the same universe he would like to put out.
What I read was intriguing. I won't lie. I was a fan of the idea when I first heard about it because I like villain to hero turns. I've always been fascinated with it. Even though this really isn't a true redemption story, it is still turning, heel to face, for lack of a better term. And I definitely want to read more.
Yeah, it's on my read list. It's definitely an interesting take on it. Everyone's like, oh yeah, Joker, crazy. But there's so many more levels to him that I think that'd be interesting to analyze those.
Okay. Well, I will say I was wrong, actually. The latest issue of Batman White Knight, number 8, comes out this Wednesday, May 9th. And personally, I was curious about this book because it's a brand new story. I love it when comics take a new turn, even if it seems like a character is way outside their norm. It's like when Cyclops made his revolutionary turn in the Chris Bachalo era of Uncanny X-Men. I was excited because he's never done that before. So when the premise of White Knight was talked about, months ago, like a year ago, I saw that and I said, this I need to see.
I totally got sucked in on the premise. And of course I got naturally distracted by my normal go-to books, so I didn't graduate past the first issue. But
I was going to guess you were distracted by Star Trek Online. Okay.
That too. I've spent quite a lot of time on Star Trek Online these days, and and I don't see that going away anytime soon because I'm a fan.
All right. Certain notorious Batman stories are getting novelizations. According to Entertainment Weekly, the stories of Batman the Killing Joke, The Court of Owls, and Harley Quinn Mad Love will all get novelizations via Titan Books with new covers.
Nice.
The rollout's going to begin September 25th, starting with the adaptation of Alan Moore's and Brian Boland's The Killing Joke.
I know I'm fucking with holy ground here. I know I am. But my opinion of The Killing Joke has been tainted in these past few years.
I hope. Do you mean the animated film?
That was the start of it. It really was.
Oh.
It's almost like the animated film accentuated and made the scene that I'm alluding to that much worse, which was the casual girl in fridge of Batgirl.
I don't think it was casual. I think it was pretty brutal. Before I get into anything, Joanna...
Well, let me finish my thought. Oh. I say casual because it really had no serious bearing on the story. It was just meant to torment Gordon and not to push Barbara's story at all. Well, of course, a skilled writer made it something to push her story, but in the narrative of Killing Joke, no.
Okay, Joanna, what do you think of the Killing Joke story?
Brutal. I remember reading it for the first time, the comic. It was not pleasant. I was just shaken. I was younger though. It'd be interesting to see it as a novel, maybe as a more fleshed out storyline, like Casey was saying, that a good writer can take it and progress the storyline. I guess it just depends who's writing it, they're going with it.
Okay, see, the first time I read The Killing Joke was actually about 2 years ago. Yes, I know I was late to the party. I just didn't have much of a reason to seek it out until at that time. And I don't think it holds up well. I think it's aged horribly. It felt like a story that was very much meant for the late 80s, early 90s. I also
that's when I read it.
Yeah, well, I also kind of resented the Joker having an origin. I think that's a character that doesn't deserve an origin. He's better as just a generalized agent of chaos. The less you know about him, the more mystique there is to the character.
Yeah, I think he's been overplayed in a lot of DC right now. Just, I don't care to know more about him. I mean, yeah, he's a villain, but I don't really care. You know, everyone's got, in marketing especially, you see Joker stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
Why does it matter?
Only because he's one of the most recognizable villains they have.
Right.
Yeah.
It's iconography for the sake of iconography, not actual progressing storyline or coming up with, hey, I know, novel idea, a new villain.
And that goes way back to the beginning of our episode where I talk about the fact that DC knows how to do iconography well. But when it comes to pushing past that, well, that's exactly right.
The thing is, though, the reason why DC does things is the same reason why anybody does things, because it's what sells. I mean, if you're going to put a bunch of Batman books with Penguin on the cover, odds are it's not going to sell that well because a lot of people consider that villain either to be very throwaway or very paint-by-numbers villain. The Joker is the one that you can never really figure out where he's coming from because depending on the writer, his modus operandi changes greatly through the decades.
Right.
So it is always a little bit of a mystery what you're getting when the Joker is a villain. I think that's why DC pushes him, because he could go just about anywhere, and you don't really have to have a reason as to why he's doing it other than he exists.
Right, because he doesn't have a reason for doing it. He has no traceable MO except for in his own mind.
Well,
he's the loose cannon.
Yeah, he used to, but then Frank Miller got his hands on the character, and everything went out the window.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Also, when it comes to DC, they're pushing forward with what's called the Flash War. As of issue 45, it looks like that's about to kick off, thanks to Wally West #1. And if you don't know why I say #1, it's because there is 2 of them now.
Yes.
You know,
I have to say this is where my field of expertise steps in. I've been waiting for Flash War ever since the prequel to it that occurred with Flash Annual, and it really stems from the beginning of Rebirth, which is when Wally became, or I don't know if he really became relevant, but
it was when he was put on the shelf, or actually taken off the shelf.
Taken off the shelf, exactly. And they addressed the elephant in the room by saying, this is, Wally West, and this is a history that he had, and this is why you should care about him. And these characters that seemingly don't know who he is, there's got to be a reason for that. And I like that, because I'm a Wally fan. I'm a Flash fan in general, but goddamn, Wally's my boy. And I'm also a big fan of speedsters. I like all the new speedsters that they've introduced, like the Flash of China, and the Kid Flash that they've got, which is, like you said, Wally West #2.
Right.
Yeah, but it turns out that the kickoff of the Flash War is that Wally's upset about remembering something. The entirety of his history has been reawakened within his own memories, and he's upset with Barry about something in particular.
Yeah, I'm kind of scratching my head on that one, too.
Yeah, I don't know of anything in their shared history that should piss him off that bad, except for possibly that because of Barry's machinations and causing the Flashpoint, which created the New 52, Wally's family no longer exists.
Oh, shit. That's a good point.
Yeah, I was going to say, Flashpoint.
Well, I mean, the Flashpoint in itself didn't cause a whole lot of damage, but Wally's 2 kids, and I don't remember their names, both are not here now.
Yeah, they're not.
They're one of the few things that wasn't restored after Superman remerged the timelines of the New 52 and Rebirth.
I figured they were just thrown into the future along with Bart.
Bart had a whole different storyline, though. He became a criminal after New 52 and Rebirth.
In New 52, yeah, he was a criminal. And it was also revealed that he wasn't even really Bart. He was like some other dude. I don't know that they've really ever addressed Impulse and true Bart Allen yet.
I don't know, and I'm not even going to guess. Everything you've described sounds so Days of Our Lives. I don't have the strength.
Flash can be like that. Okay. There's a lot of there's a lot of angst in Flash. There's a lot of self reflection and love lorn, love lost in Flash. Aside, of course, from the Speed Force.
Okay. Well, last up in DC comic news, it turns out that one writer worked on a book for them, a graphic novel, a while ago. But the book has been in limbo forever, and they don't know why. As soon as I read who was involved in this graphic novel, I think they have to print this with all conceivable haste. Okay.
What do you got?
First of all, the writer, Gail Simone.
Oh, fuck yeah. Gail Simone is a goddess.
Yeah, she's one of the people that made Deadpool famous. She has also written a number of highly acclaimed books, and even the recent #1 she did for Domino has been just kind of not lighting up the charts, but the critics have definitely taken notice of the character for the first time ever.
She also wrote my all-time favorite DC comic, Secret Six.
Okay. Well, would you like to know what graphic novel she did that hasn't been produced yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
She was doing a Poison Ivy Swamp Thing crossover graphic novel.
Ooh, fun.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, she tweeted that, quote, "I have a graphic novel with this team up, but it's in limbo," unquote.
Yeah, well, it might be in limbo because of the way DC handled her.
I would just, I'm not big into DC, but just based on the idea of these two characters, that's one of those your chocolate is in my peanut butter scenarios that's so good, I don't know why no one's tackled this idea before.
Right.
Editorial, yeah. I mean, when New 52 came about, DC burned its bridges almost with Gail Simone and fired her from Batgirl, and did not involve her at all in Birds of Prey. And then it brought back Secret Six, but it hobbled it. It's like, hey, you can't use Deadpool because now he's a hot commodity and he's got to stay in Suicide Squad, yet he's part of the core of Secret Six. And I really think that's the reason why the New 52 version of it just didn't survive.
Wait, you said Deadpool or Deathstroke?
Deadshot. Thank you for correcting me.
Okay. I was like, Deadpool.
I was waiting to see how long that would take, because that sounds like the greatest fanfic ever, when Deadpool met the Secret Six.
I did mean
he
Deadshot.
could, but yeah.
The romance between Catman and Deadshot was one of the core reasons why Secret Six was so fucking awesome. And, of course, the involvement of Ragdoll and Scandal. Surprisingly, Secret Six has a core of 4, but, hey, that's comics for you. And they didn't have those core in this new title.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to sit and lament. I mean, if it comes out, it comes out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm still going to read comic books either way. We also have general comic book and convention news. This is where we get to talk about comic books that are not Marvel or DC related, as well as conventions that are happening anywhere and everywhere. I am personally in preparation for San Diego Comic-Con. That is just over 2 months away right now. And they've announced a couple waves of guests, spotlight guests. And spotlight guests are pretty special. Not only are they special guests of the convention, not only will they be available in some sort of capacity for some kind of signing, but each of these guests also gets an hour-long panel dedicated to them at the convention during the 4 days of operation. And what I've noticed from the first 7 waves is that they've gone heavily independent this year. There have been a lot of unaligned or lowly aligned comic creators. And for the most part, the latest 2 waves, 8 and 9, continue that road. They've announced Mark Evanier. He's a writer and producer and comics historian. He also worked on Kirby, King of Comics. The writer and artist on 5,000 kilomètres par seconde and Mademoiselle Elsie, Manuel Fior. The artist and inker on Immortal Men, Wildcats, and Forever Evil, Richard Friend. The cartoonist on Bacon, Lonnie Millsap. The illustrator of Mondo posters and book covers, Matt Taylor. And the publisher of DC Comics and artist on Batman Hush and Superman Unchained, Jim Lee, will appear this year.
Oh, of course.
He usually appears every year, as long as he's able to walk.
Yeah, I've got an embarrassing video. Well, it's embarrassing to me.
I'm sure you have a number of those.
Well, let me clarify what I'm talking about. It involves Jim Lee. I was at San Diego Comic-Con way back in 2010, right before the launch of DC Universe Online, which Jim Lee was heavily involved in.
Okay.
And I got a chance to get one of the really cool tickets which took me to an after party that was fully catered and had an open bar. So you see where this is kind of going.
I don't drink, so not entirely, but I think I get the gist.
Yeah, so after a while of listening to all the press releases and them talking about it, and of course I brought up, hey, you know, when are we going to see the Lantern Corps and all this other stuff, and then they gave me the press release answer for that. They did a signing, you know, everybody lined up, and we all had our DCU posters and stuff like that, and Jim Lee was signing them. And this is the second time I had him sign something for me, the first being a Sabretooth card way back in the day.
Okay.
But I was recording it off my phone, and I got up to see him, and he took the pen, and he was like, "Hey, how's it going?" You know, and he grabbed my phone and started recording me, and I turned into an absolute and complete doofus.
What do you mean turned into?
Hush you! This is my narrative.
Well,
you know, you got that celebrity thing. You know, somebody's important to you, and they're up on that pedestal. So when the light suddenly turns on you, all you can do is react to them. And I did what everybody usually does in that situation. It's so cool to be here. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least you didn't crap.
So what I do,
at least you didn't crap your pants,
I put it up on Facebook. So if anybody wants to start digging through my videos on Facebook, it's in there.
Okay. Well, that was just one wave. The ninth wave that was announced this week was the artist on Zap and concert posters, Victor Moscosco. A cartoonist and comics historian on women's comics and women and the comics, Trina Robbins. The artist and illustrator on The Dinosaurs and the Legend of the Blues, William Stout. The publisher and distributor of The Last Gasp, Ron Turner. Writer and artist on Fab Fourmania and Soldier's Heart, Carol Tyler. And the artist on Zap and the creator of Juxtapose Art Magazine, Robert Williams. They've really gone heavily into independent comics this year, and it's refreshing.
Yeah, it is very independent. I freely admit this is. I feel like I'm listening to the technical Oscars right now because I have no idea who any of these people are.
As a matter of fact, the organizer of one of the other major conventions in the U.S. as far as comic books, ReedPop, they're the organizers of New York Comic Con, Emerald City Comic Con, and C2E2 out in Chicago. They have a new program, and they're looking to bring the flavor of New York Comic Con to New York City through the year. They're calling it NYCC Now. They want to host multiple con-type individual events around New York City. They're describing them as fan meetups, game nights, trivia, movie screenings, and more. As a matter of fact, the first event they've announced seems to be a little far away from comic books. It's going to be a panel featuring actors and husband and wife Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally discussing their upcoming book, The Greatest Love Story Ever Told. This is supposed to happen on May 31st at the Bell House in Brooklyn. Tickets are currently on sale for $40. Which includes a copy of the book.
I would go to that.
I admit to not knowing much about either of them, honestly.
They are they're so brilliant. They're both in Parks and Rec, and they have a comedy show which I believe is either on Hulu or Netflix.
Well,
probably Netflix.
Well, you got time to drop some money because, again, the event's on May 31st, and for your $40, you even get a copy of a book, which isn't scheduled to be released until October 2nd.
Nice.
Yep.
Top Cow Comics has hosted their annual talent hunt, and they've announced the winners of it this year. First place winner in the artist competition is an Italian freelance illustrator named Cecilia Lovalvo. I don't know if that's a pen name or not, but either way, that's memorable. Jeez. Jesse Elliott came in second place. He's from New Orleans. As far as the writing section, Minnesota-based writer Levi Fleming won the writing competition, with the runner-up going to Stephanie Phillips, who recently successfully kickstarted a women's hockey graphic novel, Kicking Ice.
Nice.
That's cool.
So not only did they win the competition, but they all of them get to work on a Top Cow story with the possibility of working on more in the future. That's a hell of a prize to win.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta get your feet wet. You know, that's a good way to do it.
Okay, you want to know a guy who doesn't need to get his feet wet is an artist named Brian Stelfreeze.
That name sounds so familiar.
The guy's been busy lately. He's primarily a DC artist from what I remember recently. He's recently been doing over 50 entries in the Shadow of the Bat series. It introduced people to characters like Jeremiah Arkham and Victor Zsasz. He's also
that might be why.
Okay,
yeah.
He's also a cover artist. Here's why I say it's important. Apparently, Stelfreeze was on a plane, I think it was going to Australia, and he was kind of bored. So, you know the vomit bags they sometimes give you on those flights?
Yep.
He grabbed it, and he drew a bust image of Catwoman.
Right.
And then he took a picture of it, put it on Twitter, and said, quote, "If you're flying from Adelaide to Sydney on Australia today, Brian left this hidden art for you to find," unquote. He put the bag back on the plane for somebody to find.
Well, that's kind of cool of him.
Yeah, an original Brian Stelfreeze just sitting on a plane.
Nice.
Of course, it's going to end up in some 8-year-old's hands, and he's going to use it to wipe like peanut butter all over it or some weird shit like that.
Or somebody's going to pick it up and go, "Man, somebody was really bored."
Yeah, seriously.
I just pray he doesn't do this kind of stuff at like San Diego or New York Comic-Con, because as soon as he announces it, there's going to be a miniature riot going on.
Oh, well, definitely some kind of a
poor grandmother was knocked out at New York Comic-Con this week for a free piece of art.
Yeah. Scavenger hunt. That's the word I was looking for. God.
What do you know about Jackson the Rabbit?
I don't know anything about Jackson the
Nothing.
Rabbit. Help me understand who Jackson the Rabbit is as I Google it.
Okay,
quietly.
Jackson is a green rabbit from the old expanded universe of Star Wars. He was introduced in the comics way
Green
back
Rabbit.
then. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
He came out in Marvel Star Wars 8 way back in the day.
Yeah.
And I bring him up because he's recently reappeared in the modern Star Wars storyline.
Which one?
I believe it's the modern Star Wars comics. It was Star Wars Adventures Annual. It's a spin-off from IDW's range of young readers-focused Star Wars comics, so it's an IDW book. It was written by Kevin Scott with art by Maurice and Chris Fenolio. They call it The Lost Eggs of Livorno.
Ah, it's Jackson with 2 X's. Jaxxon.
Yeah. So the character's been reintroduced in Star Wars comics for modern readers.
Yeah, back when Marvel was doing the Star Wars comics and they wanted to continue on from the story, and this is like, of course, before Empire.
Yes.
They filled in a lot of this, and they introduced this weird-ass Green Rabbit dude. I remember being completely dumbfounded by that.
You know what, though? I mean, it's not the first time I've seen a Green Rabbit, but all I can say about him is he's no Bucky.
No. But, as ludicrous as he is, I mean, like you said, he's no Bucky. He's certainly no Rocket. I do have to admit a little bit of nostalgia about digging him up.
Okay. Enough splitting
I'm still
hairs.
trying to place him because I'm a huge Star Wars fan and I don't know a thing about him.
Something tells me the stories that involve this rabbit were not exactly big on readers' lists to begin with.
Right,
no, he was
probably.
pretty much, he was a Marvel creation. Green Rabbit, red suit, hung around Han a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I've had enough.
That's pretty much it.
Okay, enough splitting hairs.
Oh my god.
Really?
Last up in general comic news is also a Star Wars tale, and I only bring it up because there's going to be a new comic book adaptation of Star Wars The Last Jedi, which I know is a very polarizing film as far as Star Wars fans, except apparently the adaptation, the comic book version, is going to include a lot more of Luke Skywalker's story and storyline within it.
Good, because there's big plot holes, damn it.
Yeah, I acknowledge that.
I
love
enjoyed
the movie, but there were still plot holes.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie. You know, I'm one of those people that think Star Wars needed to grow up a bit.
No, I get that, and I understand the concept of passing the baton, or the lightsaber in this case.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of choices in Last Jedi were bad.
Yes. And there are so many ways you could have gone with so many of these. Like, why? Why did you do this? And in the next movie, they're going to have to undo some of the things that were done that weren't necessarily canon, I think. But, I mean...
I don't know if they're going to have to undo it. They may double down on it.
Well, we'll see. It's back in Abrams' hands. I just think that making us wait as long as we waited for Luke and that lightsaber for him to toss over his shoulder just felt like a fucking insult.
I about jumped out of the chair like, what? No, I probably did, actually.
I don't know. See, that's the difference. I belly laughed when he did that.
Oh, you troll.
He's grumpy cat Luke. He doesn't care. He's beyond caring.
It's not that he didn't care. He just didn't want to get involved.
Yeah, but still, I mean, that had the potential to be a really important scene. And
right, and they built it up at the very end of the Force Awakens. They built it up, and you're like, yes, this is the thing. This is the Luke, yes. And then it's like, really? Really?
It turned into a punchline. A punchline I didn't care for.
I didn't either. And the scene where he's training her, and he says, reach out, and he's tickling her hand with the little piece of grass. I was like, this has to be a leftover blooper, and why is it here? What? It just took away from the training scene, you know? He's just too busy trolling her the whole time. It's just, why? Why did you do that?
See, I think that's hilarious because it seemed to me that Luke was finally treating things like Han treated all this time. Hokey religion saving your ass.
Yeah, well, and it's pretty clear that Mark Hamill wasn't too thrilled with it either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he went so far as to vocalize it in public, which is something he doesn't normally do.
Vocalize in public? He does that quite frequently, actually.
His opinions on
his
things
opinions
that he's directly involved
of
with?
Star Wars. Yeah, he usually doesn't do that. He has opinions about other things.
Yeah, I mean, he'll sometimes screw with people when he's signing, like, baseball cards, making fun of
oh, it's not sometimes, acting. It's constantly.
Yeah, but, I mean, yeah. He was talking about stuff before it even came out.
Yeah.
Well, we got to talk about something that's already come out. The subject of this week is Phoenix Resurrection, the return of Jean Grey to Marvel Comics. It was a Marvel book from 2000, technically the end of 2017. It stretched a little bit into 2018. It was a weekly release by Marvel Comics, and it really marked kind of a new beginning for the X-Men. The writer of it was Matthew Rosenberg. The penciler was Lionel Francis Yu. I think he was one of a couple different pencilers in the series. The ink was done by Jerry Alanguian. I know I butchered that too. Colors by Rochelle Rosenberg, and the letters were by VC's Travis Lanham. And this was one of those rare instances where a character died in comic books and actually stayed dead for a considerable amount of time. Maybe not as far as comic book storyline time, but as far as readers' time, it was about 12 years before the character was reintroduced.
Which was, twice as long as she was dead when Dark Phoenix killed herself on the moon.
Yeah. I mean, so far I think the record for the longest death has been Bucky. He stayed dead for quite a long time.
Yeah, he did. I think he actually does have the record. I bet you if we actually sat down and thought about that for a while, he probably would have the record.
Yeah, that would be a whole different conversation. But Phoenix Resurrection is kind of different as far as X-Men tales. X-Men books often involve one of two different things, either a whole lot of drama or a whole lot of action. This book didn't really fall into either end of that spectrum. It was more... If I had to give you a modern parallel, it was kind of a comic book version of Twin Peaks.
It was really trippy. I have to say, all the waitress scenes and the transitions as she's walking through the environment, and you see that everything around her is vibrant and alive and colorful, and then it just turns to ashes and shit behind her, because the only thing that matters, as far as the Phoenix is concerned, is Jean Grey.
Right. I mean, it was an interesting transition, and I liked some of the visuals. I actually just read this, at least through 5. That's what I have in front of me. Yeah, there's just one scene where she's looking ahead, and everything's normal, and everything behind her is ash. She turns around, and the entire scene is switched, so anything behind her is ash. So even though she's facing the opposite direction, that building that was ash before, it's an interesting perspective shift. I just thought it was visually appealing.
Well, it was one of those books that was hard to gauge very early on. Right. I mean, one of the first scenes are two kids just kind of biking down a rural street in Annandale-on-Hudson in New York, and they come across what appears to be a child that's been hit by a car. And before they can figure out whether or not this poor child is alive or dead, her eyes suddenly snap open, she stands up, and she says, backwards, "We were better off dead." And that's when another child appears behind him and asks if they want to play Frisbee for some reason. When they turn back, the mysterious child is gone, and all that's left is the redhead with a dead dove in her hands.
When I first read that, I thought that was the little girl who died, who was friends with Jean Grey, and she died, and that kickstarted Jean's mutant abilities early.
Well, it was. I mean, that was her. But the thing is, though, it's not something you would know if you haven't been a long-term reader of X-Men comics. And I mean long-term, like X-Men 12, way back in 1966, I think.
Yeah. And that was the reason why a lot of characters inside Marvel kind of viewed Jean Grey as unstable, even before the whole Phoenix thing. Because she definitely came into her powers at a time when she was not really capable of dealing with them and had to be suppressed for a while.
Well, things got even weirder from there because 2 hours later, the X-Men showed up. I don't know who exactly called them, but why does it always seem like when there's big explosions, you call the Avengers? When there's huge things that you just don't understand, you call the Fantastic Four. When it's downright weird and you don't even know how to put it into words, somebody call an X-Man.
There's something strange in the neighborhood.
That sounds like you almost described Doom Patrol.
But I mean, when the X-Men are called in, the two kids who came across the body are the only ones in the area, bleeding from the forehead with no apparent wounds, and floating, it looks to be about 4 inches off the ground. And surrounded by dead doves. None of this is good.
No. No, it wasn't. Let's see. I think X-Men Gold, I think, is what the team that actually arrived on the scene for this one.
Technically, yeah. The splash page afterwards, though, that has like 3 or 4 combined X squads, as well as a bunch of independents and people who haven't been heard from in a while, is kind of a scary picture because at this point in the X-Men's history, most of these teams aren't getting together for varying reasons. You've got Weapon X, half of them are former villains who tried to kill them on multiple occasions. X-Men Blue, who don't agree with anything else going on right now. X-Men Gold, who are trying to reestablish mutants as a friendly force for good. And then you have the astonishing X-Men, as well as a couple mutants who are currently Avengers, and a few people who really haven't tried to talk to each other because last time they tried to murder each other. It's like Bishop at the background there. I'm kind of surprised nobody's actively strangling him because he's the one that accidentally shot Xavier last time most of these people saw him.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see Sabretooth in this myself, actually.
Yeah, just standing in the background, left alone for the most part.
Yeah, it's like, why the hell is he here? He has no emotional stake in this whatsoever.
Who knows?
Yeah, but that's because I'm a Sabretooth fan, and I actually paid attention to his little dinky appearance.
Yeah, and Well, after this point, the X-Men have decided to split up into 3 teams, technically 4 if you count the ones who are watching the Homestead. But they go to 3 different locations: the former Hellfire Club, Mont St. Francis, and the North Pole, which are 3 locations that may not sound too important, again, if you're a new reader, but if you've been reading X-Men for a while, those are 3 rather freaky places to go at once.
Yeah, pretty-random.
Oh, like I said, I'm sure it appears random, but these were 3 locations that were very important just before the Dark Phoenix saga.
Yeah.
And then all 3 teams are suddenly attacked by people who technically should have been dead for a long time.
That's actually when I really started paying attention because they didn't name those characters. So I'm sitting here looking at the comic and I'm squinting going, who are you? You're dead and you're an X-Men, but I need to know, who are you?
Wait, so you didn't recognize the guys in the North Pole fighting Wolverine? What's wrong with you?
No, I'm talking about the group as a whole when they gathered them all together.
Oh.
And they had like all kinds of weird dead X-Men. I mean, they had dead X-Men even I couldn't identify. I had to go to Google and Reddit to figure out who I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's a later on in issue 4 thing. But late in issue 1, when you have an apparent, explosion of the sun and then a waitress who looks suspiciously like Jean Grey standing outside of a diner, that's when this whole thing gets even stranger, and I didn't think that was possible. But but when the lady sitting at the counter reading the newspaper introduces herself as Annie, if it was possible for my head to snap in 360 degrees, it would have. Because that is the name of Jean Grey's dead best friend, the one who never made it to adulthood, yet here she is.
Yeah, the one we were just talking about.
And then when she's talking to Mr. Cassidy, who, once you look at him, looks a lot like a dead X-Man known as Banshee.
Yes. I was really hoping that there was going to be something about that.
Yeah.
But again, I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, and then she decides to go home, and she goes to her family home, which is populated by her parents, who have been dead for about 10 years themselves.
Yes, killed by the Shi'ar. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I don't think I've ever really said that out loud.
Sometimes it's Shi'ar, sometimes it's Shi'ar. It kind of depends on the writer.
Yeah, the Shi'ar were trying to make sure that the Dark Phoenix wasn't going to come back, and they were of the mind that, of course, Rachel didn't help, that the Grey family bloodline was the danger. Yeah. And so they showed up during a family reunion and killed everybody except Rachel.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where if you're reading by yourself, you almost want to laugh out loud at Jean Grey going home, seeing the small red bird in the cage and feeding it.
Oh, God.
That was a bizarre image in and of itself. But at the very end, when her apparent boyfriend shows up, she opens the door, and it's a strapping young man wearing ruby red sunglasses. That's kind of the moment where you really have to just stand up and go, the hell am I reading here?
Yeah.
Because he's been dead himself for a couple years in comics at this point.
Yeah.
Right. I remember reading that and I was thinking, okay, maybe this is going to be the engine for a majority of these Dead X that I'm seeing coming back to life.
Yeah, but the first issue was nothing but an entire ball of mysteries wrapped in bacon.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, we are talking about Phoenix Resurrection, and Phoenix...
Yeah, but the return of Jean Grey with the Phoenix made a lot of sense. The Phoenix tacking on all these other characters is what the hell is happening here?
Well, I mean, Jean's had plenty of opportunity to return, because you can see my quotation fingers.
No, I can't. It's an audio podcast, you dip nut.
Well, I mean, we know she exists when she's in the White Room and talking to people, I guess, 7-8 years after she died.
I think you need to slow down and explain the White Room, because all people know is that you just described something you can find in a Sears display.
Yeah. Okay, the Phoenix White Room, or actually, it's called the White Hot Room. Yeah, the Phoenix White Hot Room. It's like a realm that it's kind of, how best do I say this? It's where the Phoenix lives, but it's also kind of an afterlife, kind of a nether region, underworld kind of thing. And
a nether region type of thing. It's a place with testicles hanging in every corner of the room. It's so bizarre.
God, I hope that really comes out in editing.
Nope. The White Hot Room is more like a way station for the underworld. It's where souls are processed before they're moved on to their various location or endpoints.
Right, and it had a connection to Phoenix because the White Hot Room resides inside the McCran crystal.
Mm-hmm. It's like the Phoenix's personal gateway to the underworld, more or less.
Right. And it was clear that that's where Jean Grey was. And that's where the white and gold Phoenix costume really came from, that some people see in some of the promotional art.
Okay. Now, I got a question for you, because this brings us to issue number 2. Did you understand the first couple pages there? Because I've had to explain
the first 2
this
pages
to people.
were.
There was an astronaut who was working on the International Space Station, and he was distracted by a sudden explosion on the moon.
Yes. I immediately thought of Dark Phoenix's suicide in X-Men 137.
Well, it was even more poignant than that, because at the same time this explosion is happening, Jean Grey is having a fever dream, and she's talking in her sleep, and all she says is, "It's better this way. Quick, clean, final." Which is one of the last things the Phoenix said before it killed itself on the moon. And depending on how you interpret the writings, that was either Jean Grey inhabited by a cosmic entity, or a cosmic entity masquerading as Jean Grey, while the real one was at the bottom of a bay. I can't remember the name of it.
They have really muddled that quite a bit.
Look, it wasn't Chris Claremont who muddled it, though, when he wrote it. It was those who came after and decided to reintroduce the character.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote a piece about this in my my Facebook blog, Comic Book Facts, about the fact that that was supposed to be Jean. Phoenix is Jean, Dark Phoenix is Jean. Jean is dead. And Jean had to be dead because of the planet that Dark Phoenix destroyed, which sadly is, the writer didn't write that. That was not intended to be the narrative that was going to happen, but John Byrne, being John Byrne, it's like, you know what, I'm kind of bored with what we're doing here. I'm going to write this scene where this planet, it gets exploded, and John Byrne had a lot of clout with Marvel back then. So when they got these pages back, they was like, "Hey, John, what's up with this?" It was like, I got bored. I was like, we'll write it in. And right then and there, you doomed Jean. Because the book came out, the Dabari died. Jim Shooter's like, we can't have this mass murderer just be redeemed and have this idyllic life with Slim, and everything's gonna be fine. No, we gotta kill her.
Yeah,
and she's gotta stay dead.
Idyllic, if only they knew what came later. But Jean Grey wakes up back in this weird suburban town she apparently is inhabiting, and she's encountering more passed away X-Men, including Jamie Madrox, the multiple man. Except all of a sudden she encounters one who's not dead. She has a new customer at the diner at her table, a white-haired Jewish man who a lot of people would recognize as Magneto, the Lord of Magnetism. Usually an X-Men villain, but lately has been, I don't know, I guess you could say playing both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
He's the first character that's appeared in this that hasn't been dead, so it was very curious to me as to whether or not that might actually be the real guy. So sometimes even when he's working for the side of the Angels, Magneto is about 2 steps ahead of where the rest of the X-Men are.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it became rather apparent later in the issue that wasn't the Magneto. This is another construct of the bizarre world she's in.
Yeah, because apparently the rules of that world aren't necessarily, hey, whoever's dead is here. It's whatever the Phoenix is constructing for Jean's life.
Yeah,
it's going through her thoughts and memories, bringing up ghosts of the past, whether they're actual ghosts or just metaphoric ghosts.
Yeah, speaking of which, the cook of the diner is Proudstar, John Proudstar.
Mm-hmm.
The original Thunderbird. Which was kind of that was one I had to actually go back and stare at a little bit before I figured it out. That was kind of a subtle Easter egg in there.
It wasn't too subtle for me. I mean, I saw that coming a mile away.
I was kind of impressed when the Construct Magneto attacked the mansion, and there to stand against him was Iceman, Hellion, Boom Boom, Longshot, Chamber, and all-new Wolverine.
That was a weird mix.
Well, yeah, I mean, they weren't...
Yeah.
The others were out on missions. They were just there to watch the house, which turned out to be the place that was under attack. And I don't know about anybody else, but it was really weird to watch this Magneto from the 1960s realize that this new Wolverine is different, but he didn't realize just how different she was until she took one of her toe claws and jabbed it underneath his chin.
Oh, God, that was brutal as hell.
But this new construct apparently only has as much information as Jean Grey has, so she didn't really know a whole lot about X-23.
Right.
And how about that scene where Jean is in a supermarket and she's surrounded by all those people?
That was really bizarre.
That, I mean, you can count Psylocke's twin, Revenge, in there. What appeared to be Gateway?
Yes, that's Gateway.
I don't know who the brown hair guy is. I'm assuming it's Madrox, but the guy with the black hair standing next to Gateway seemed like Legion to me.
Actually, the guy with the brown hair, he reminds me of one of the Guthries.
Oh, well... Didn't he have red hair?
Well, there's a number of Guthries, though.
Yeah.
The dark-haired one, he almost looked like Urg from the Morlocks.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Except no eye patch.
Yeah.
And Urg is not dead. But
he was also
Gateway, Revenge, and I'm assuming everybody else in that scene are dead. And
actually, you know who the brown-haired one is? I bet you that's Wither.
Oh, it is Wither. You're right. The hair.
Mm-hmm.
Then who's the one? Who's the blonde with the mop?
Possibly. It might be Cypher.
Cypher's not dead.
He was.
Well, shit. He's been dead. You're right.
Yeah.
I guess we're talking Buffy rules now. Whoever's been dead.
But there's a number of other characters that have died and stayed that way. It's just kind of a matter of going through it. It could also be Elixir.
Yeah, I have to say I was happy to see Revenge. Just because, I mean, we haven't touched on her existence in well over a decade.
And Caliban was the one working the parking lot, what do you call it, the shopping carts.
Yeah. For the uninitiated, Revenge is Psylocke's original body. Psylocke went through something called the Siege Perilous, which I'm not going to get into why But when she did, she switched bodies with a hand ninja. The hand ninja called Quanon.
A hand ninja sounds like somebody working out of a salon.
I know. It's a hand ninja. So now Quanon is a hand ninja, and when you're looking at Psylocke, that's who you're looking at. And that's the reason why, an obviously white girl has been Asian for, 25 years now?
I'd say roughly 20. It was a 90s thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But when that happened, you really didn't find out, what happened to Quanon's real persona? Because it's definitely not in this body.
Yeah.
Well, it ended up way back in Betsy's white girl body. And years back, she came back with all of Psylocke's abilities, except instead of like a Psy knife, she had like a Psy sword, and she called herself Revenge, which is French for revenge. And she was an X-Men for maybe like a year, and then they killed her off with the legacy bars.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, issue 3 is more or less transitional. It was more about Easter eggs and a little bit more of what Jean Grey's weird life is like right now. But I want to ask, did anybody catch on page 15 the Church of Apocalypse?
Yeah.
That's kind of creepy.
It was. But, I mean, at this point, yeah, it's to be expected.
But at the end of the issue, when the combined X-Men showed up at the infamous Mesa in New Mexico, where during the Dark Phoenix saga, Cyclops took off his visor for the first time and made out with a cosmic entity. Yes, it happened. I know, it sounds bizarre, but there it is.
When Jean Grey suppressed his optic blasts with her telekinesis, and they got to make out.
But when they discovered at the side of this mesa this gigantic dome, it didn't occur to me at the time that I'm staring at a gigantic phoenix egg.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those things.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, from just looking at it, it looks like a dome, but if you keep thinking about the weird metaphors of the phoenix and the bird-like properties it has, that's an egg.
Yeah.
Issue 4 is kind of when this whole thing goes way off the frickin' rails. Because Jean Grey woke up in her dilapidated house, but apparently can't notice that anything is wrong. Including that her what do you call it? Her uniform is torn. Her waitress uniform. Mm-hmm. She's walking down the street talking to a lady that's had her throat ripped out.
And that was when the transition of life to death was a bit more obvious.
Yeah.
Right.
When they were tracking her going from right to left.
I missed on my first read through that in that scene with the lady and bleeding from the neck. That's actually 2 X-Men sitting there.
I gotta bring up the issue to see who 2 X-Men you're talking about.
Oh, it was a lady called Maria. She was bleeding from the throat when Jean Grey wasn't looking at her. When she was sitting up there fine. She was sitting with a small dog. Maria was formerly known as Feral in X-Force.
That's right.
She was killed during that bizarre Romulus storyline in the Wolverine comics.
That's something I hope never, ever, ever comes back.
But it turns out the small dog, Tyr, is also technically an X-Man.
Yeah, that's
Dog.
That's Rain Sinclair's son from an Asgardian wolf god.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And he was killed at the end of the same run that introduced him in X-Factor.
Yeah, which I believe led to Guido's damnation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but it also led to M's salvation.
Yeah. I love M.
Complicated storyline, a bit too much to get into here.
Yeah.
When the X-Men delved into this bizarre egg, though, to them, the world is nothing but fire and pain, which is kind of fitting when you consider what the Phoenix has done in their lifetime.
Yeah. It's a god of destruction.
Yeah. And then
life, rebirth, and destruction.
Yeah, and then they were met by a team of dead X-Men, non-resurrected X-Men who have not come back.
And that's where I came into play, going, who the fuck are all these dudes? I mean, it was kind of obvious. We had Banshee.
Nope.
God, now I gotta actually look at the picture.
No,
I gotta look at the picture.
It's issue 4, page 7, bottom panel. There's a number of X-Men there, and they have not been resurrected so far. The one on the far left, I forget her name. She was one of the second team of X-Men that was introduced at the same time as Vulcan. Then you also have Feral, Cyclops, Onyx, Icarus, Wolf Cub, Rusty Collins, who may appear in the second Deadpool film. The one in the background, I can't remember. He was one of the training X-Men. From the.
I'm not bringing up this image fast enough.
Yeah.
Google has failed me.
And there's John Proudstar and Esme, one of the Cuckoos.
I think both the Cuckoos are involved in that.
Well, there's only one of them in this picture. And the X-Men have to throw down with what they thought were dead friends. Madrox was involved in that later on as well. So apparently was with her. And they figured out pretty early on that they're dealing with constructs, so they didn't bother to hold back. It was even weirder when they came to the diner, the one untouched landscape in this hell zone.
Yeah.
You know, I gotta appreciate Iceman too when his lone question is, "Do you think they have waffle fries?"
Yeah, fucking Iceman.
Priorities, though, if they're stuck there.
Yeah, you gotta have waffle fries.
Oh, God, waffle fries.
It was even weirder though when Jean Grey came out of the front with a bag of garbage, and she apparently could not see them. She seemed vaguely aware that something was in front of her, but she just couldn't see them for the life of her.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much par for the course on that particular series, and I'm trying to figure out. Well, actually, I'm trying to find this damn picture because I want those dead X-Men.
Well, the whole story got even weirder because while the X-Men were congregating outside this diner, Jean Grey was inside, and the conversation with the owner of the place and her former dead best friend Annie suddenly gets very contextualized. She starts to talk about, wouldn't it be great if you were a goddess?
Yeah, I guess that's when we find out the owner of the place is Phoenix.
Well, at least very much an avatar of it. Things didn't get any better because while this conversation goes on, a gigantic Firebird lands on the diner and starts staring at the X-Men, which has got to make you feel like a mouse in a field.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, Joanna, Phoenix is one of your favorite characters.
Yes. Classic Phoenix. I mean, I started reading comics. It was classic X-Men. I mean, circa 90s, and a little bit of Batman here and there, but my main interest was Phoenix and Storm and Rogue. Those are my three favorites. I followed the rest of the X-Men just because they're involved in the stories, but yes, love it.
See, I think this storyline was very subtly written, and I think page 19 of issue number 4 was a big show of how subtle it was when they were discussing who should go inside and try to talk Jean out. Mm-hmm. And the time-lost Cyclops from the 1960s thinks that he knows her best, so he should go inside, but Old Man Logan, who himself is from an alternate dimension and much older than the standard one, tells him, that's not your Jean in there. The woman you know and love is going to turn up just fine. Trust me. But this isn't her, kid. You don't know the woman in there. You didn't ever love her. I did. And I've seen a lot of people online go, well, why would he talk like that? He didn't know this one either. He's from somewhere else. That wasn't the point of that conversation. The point of the conversation was, if you send Cyclops in there, yes, he's going to try to talk her down. That's what every Cyclops has done. But if she's insane and she's getting ready to burn the world, you need a Wolverine to take care of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this wasn't he actually used those particular words because right around the time that this issue came out, young Jean Grey had her own series, and I believe in issue 8 or 9, the Phoenix had basically wiped her out. It had obliterated young Jean Grey and killed her. So at the time, he's like, "Oh yeah, yours is just fine. Your Jean Grey is fine." She wasn't.
Well, she was missing at this point. Nobody was quite sure where she was. I don't remember she was obliterated, but the Phoenix definitely took her off the board for a while.
Oh, she skeletonized her.
Yeah, but again, I don't know what that means, because to the Phoenix, that's an easy snap of the fingers.
It is very true. You're very right.
So Wolverine was going in there with the idea of, if she's not okay, unfortunately, I'm going to have to gut another redhead.
Yeah.
And the last issue, when Jean Grey became slowly more and more aware of herself, I wasn't sure to be glad or terrified at that moment. Because this whole world that's been set up within this egg, anything could have gone any particular way.
Right. You wanted her to flex her wings and destroy everything, or do you want her to be in conflict and maybe have a weakness?
Or do you want her to have
tempting
knowledge of her situation? Because if she understands where she is, she might freak out, and that could cause an explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gave her something that she didn't even know that she didn't have at the point, and that was Scott Summers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, towards the beginning of this particular issue, you know, the the ultimate conclusion of all this, when Logan decided to try to snap Jean out of it by slicing through the throat of Annie. That was about as gory as this book became.
And I really thought that was going to do it.
Yeah. And when there wasn't any explosion, but Annie slowly sat up, her neck knitted itself, and she started to talk very differently.
Yeah, that's I guess that's the big reveal. Hey, I'm not Annie. I'm this cosmic entity of chaos.
But it's after Annie started talking that Jean declared she finally remembered things, and her eyes started to glow orange, and you're still not sure if that's a great sign or not.
Yeah, it's usually not.
Well, it was even worse when the whole diner went up in an explosion of flame. Logan comes skidding out of it, and from the smoke comes walking Jean Grey in a Phoenix outfit of black and red, which is a new one on me.
That was a new one. I really liked it.
Yeah, I love it.
Then she took a flying leap, landed in the middle of him, and created a crater. Still not sure what to think of any of this. And even the silence in the next couple of panels where nobody would say anything spoke volumes. Nobody wanted to set whatever this was off.
Right. They were pretty much just watching how this was going to unfold with, I guess, Phoenix Scott.
Yeah. And even when she finally spoke and just said, "Hello, Bobby, Aurora," it would have been totally appropriate if you looked beneath Iceman's legs and saw a yellow sheet of ice.
I guess I didn't want to take away from the impact of the scene, which is basically, Jean Grey saying goodbye to this temptation.
Well, that was the part that wasn't expected, because in the solicits it all said that Jean Grey's returning with a Phoenix. Jean Grey's returning with a Phoenix. So that told me that the classic character's returning at her maximum power levels. But even after all this, she denied it. It tried to offer her entire family reborn as a caveat. She denied it. It played its ace card of resurrecting Scott Summers. And I don't mean just bringing back a construct. It brought Scott Summers in his most current outfit back from the grave, and even he was confused about what's happening, and she denied it. And he understood it.
Yeah. I mean, you had this moment where they're both sitting there realizing this what is a colossal moment. And then they bring back what we were actually just talking about when Jean Grey repressed Cyclops' optic beams telekinetically, allowing him to take his mask off.
Right, but when she did that originally back in 1978, she did that with Phoenix enhanced powers. Now she's grown to the point where she can do it without the Phoenix's influence.
Exactly.
Right.
So her powers have grown despite the fact that she's been in the ground for the past 11, 12 years. But the fact that she denied the Phoenix, even with this gift, and he understood and was willing to give it up just so she could continue her life, that was amazing. And I think that's the ultimate thing that I enjoyed about this story, is that at the end of it, yes, it resurrected Jean Grey, but it didn't just bring her back and say, and now her story continues. The writer was so careful to give her a reason to exist without the Phoenix, and a reason for the Phoenix not to come back for the foreseeable future.
Right, and it's basically completely untethering her from this cosmic entity that she's been saddled with since the 70s.
I don't even think saddled with is the right term. I think since Chris Claremont's run, for better or for worse, she's been defined by her connection to this thing.
Yeah, and every time you think, okay, she's Jean Grey, she's just simple Jean Grey, it's back, and then it's explained that it's never been gone, and that they're inextricably linked. But I think that Phoenix Resurrection, its main goal is showing a good, clean cut from the concept of Phoenix and Jean Grey, and allowing Jean Grey to be Jean Grey.
It adds another wild card to the future of Marvel Comics, though, because the Phoenix functions best with a host, and if the one host it actually managed to pick from time and space has rejected it, where does it conceivably go?
Back to the White Hot Room?
That's one supposition, but it hungers for a host. It enjoys the emotions it feels when it's bonded to a being that can actually feel mortality. So it's got to go somewhere.
I don't know. I think that Phoenix is going to stay dormant for a while. I think that Marvel is going to keep her. I keep wanting to call Phoenix her. In the background as much as possible.
We know the Phoenix is a her thanks to Avengers 1 million BC. But
I see, which I was just reading before this podcast.
But I would say that I would expect to see the Phoenix in about 4 years.
I think that is I think that's accurate.
Well,
I think you're right on the money with that.
I have a reason for that, but it gets a little complicated. We know that Disney's in the middle of a bidding war right now for the Fox properties. Comcast is they're trying to put together the money for a bid themselves. But supposedly the CEO of Fox Entertainment has said that he expects a deal with Disney to close by the end of the year. By the end of this year. But hang on. And I say about 4 years because I know that Phase 4 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now doesn't include any of the Fox-owned entertainment properties like Fantastic Four or X-Men. Mm-hmm. But once if those properties are successfully purchased, I wouldn't be surprised if Phase 5 or Phase 6 includes the Dark Phoenix itself as the primary MacGuffin of the MCU.
I think that's legit.
I'm okay with that.
It's the next logical story considering the height that they've reached right now and regarding the Infinity Stones and the Gauntlet. There's not... If you're looking for the next level above that, the Phoenix is definitely in that realm.
Yeah.
And, nothing against Fox particularly, but their history with X-Men films and highfalutin storylines is not good, and I don't expect the Dark Phoenix saga to break that streak.
I don't think you're going to see anything involving Marvel and the X-Men for at least 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, even if this deal was done tomorrow, Feige has already said that just the bureaucracy of the entire thing would force them to push back things for years.
Yeah. But as far as this miniseries, I really liked it because it did reintroduce old concepts. I think it's great because it allows most of these characters new points to move forward instead of rehashing storylines that have worked well for the last 20 years. The only drawback to it, though, is that we now live in an age where a lot of comics are available digitally, so they've stopped producing those little boxes of annotations. If you want to know what this is, go back to this issue. If you want to know the last time you've seen this character, you go back to this issue. Those don't exist anymore. So if you're staring at a bunch of images you don't understand in this book, which is very likely, you don't know where to go to figure out what this means.
And that was me. And I've been awash in comic books since I was in middle school. And I was still staring at this issue going, what the fuck?
Yeah, I had to read it a couple times, like, wait, this is trippy. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to miss a note because I have plenty of friends that come to me and ask me questions. And it's like, man, if I don't have answers, my cred is out the fucking window. Google, save me from my mediocrity.
See, that tells you where it goes. I was just enjoying the story for the story. Casey was sitting there going, oh dear God, if I don't understand this, they will think less of me.
They will know me. Ignore that man behind the curtain.
See, when the Phoenix exhibits this ability, that means it really wants a cracker.
Oh, Jesus. My analysis of this comic was important, and not knowing who those fucking X-Men are really bugged the shit out of me.
I mean, I enjoyed it because I'm a long-term X-Men mark. They are my favorite team of all time and some of my favorite characters. However, I will admit that although it stands alone pretty well, you do have to know a significant amount about at least the Dark Phoenix saga for this to have any sort of resonance.
Yeah, it's a little unforgiving to the casual reader. Mm-hmm. When I say little, I mean extraordinarily.
Yeah. So if somebody said, I wanted to know the X-Men or I wanted to know the Phoenix, I would say that this is some place to end up, but it's not a place to start.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Yeah. When I talk to people about comics, I typically target people who are casual readers or don't really read comics at all. They just expose themselves to the movies and the TV shows and whatnot like that.
Why does it sound like you're talking to casual readers like you're looking for a Tinder date?
But stories like this, I would never suggest to somebody. I want to learn more about the Phoenix. Okay, we'll avoid this.
Wow.
It's the truth. I mean, this is the punctuation to a very, very, very long story.
And complicated.
Yes. And footnotes are necessary.
The thing is, though, when you say it's punctuation, it's not a period. It's a semicolon at best.
Yeah.
Because it transitions almost directly into X-Men Red. And, well, that's a story for another time.
Well, I wouldn't say directly. There's a 3-month time jump after that, but it does explain why at least Jean Grey is back, or how.
Mm-hmm.
And that Jean Grey clearly has an agenda.
Mm-hmm. But it's worth a read. It really is. But you have to be able to abuse like Marvel's wiki page before you read it.
Well, we're going to give this one a difficulty score of 4 out of 5 at least.
You know, if I had to give it a number scale, I give it a 7.5. It's well written, it's well drawn, but it is just not an easy place to get involved.
You know, out of 10, I will completely agree with that.
Agreed.
I mean, it's a good story. It's not profound. It's a good story, and if you're a comic book fan, you do feel rewarded by the subtle nuances. I mean, come on, who the fuck is going to think, oh, hey, that woman's revenge? I haven't seen her in 15 years, except somebody that's been hardcore reading it for years.
You know who's going to think that? Jim Lee, because he had to draw those legs forever. All right.
Jim Lee.
So what is the next story we're going to read next week?
That's a good question.
Oh my god, this is where he pees himself.
Don't choke now.
No.
Hoisted by his own petard.
I know. I mean, okay, well, to everybody I was talking to about this podcast, I told a majority of people that we were going to be focusing on Volume 5 of the story Runaways. And I was totally stoked for it, and I reread it, and I was talking to my partners here, and upon reflecting on the fact that Hulu has a Runaways show, and I really want people to see it because it's an extraordinary show, I felt that I would be doing you a disservice by discussing Volume 5 of Runaways, as it tips the hat on a lot of things I don't want to tell you about. I want you to experience in the show or read for yourself, because Runaways has just one of those hooks that I never saw coming. And I want y'all to experience it.
It's a great show.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to focus on anything, I'll talk about the Runaways show, TV show. We could definitely talk about that. But you're not going to hear anything from me about the Runaways Volume 5. Unless you want to talk to one of us directly, and I know what you want to get into. So, yeah, we're not doing Runaways. Next storyline, what do we want to do? That's a good question. I am
weaseled hardcore on that. How about the Wildstorm?
The Wildstorm?
Yes. Since DC's Rebirth era, the Wildstorm characters that they bought out from Image Comics and Wildstorm Comics have largely been absent. It turns out that a writer was tasked to create a maxi series based on those characters within their own kind of bubble universe. It doesn't fit into the DC universe proper. The difference is, though, when he was finished writing, he had a 24-issue maxi series plan laid out.
Okay.
And several issues of it are out, but the first volume has definitely been done for a while.
You know, I've seen them try to use these characters. I've seen them fail at using these characters. They try to introduce, characters like Grifter directly into the DCU, and man, they just didn't work.
Yeah, Gen 13 Fairchild with the Ravagers was a huge mess. But, this is the characters not in the classic Wildstorm universe. It apparently is some new mini-universe that the writer has built, with some apparent research and love for the originals.
That'd be interesting. How many issues are there out right now?
I want to say about 11, but I want to focus on volume, so I'd say only the first 6, especially since it sounds like you've never read it. And Joanna, have you read any of it?
No, I haven't.
New territory.
Oh, well, I'm always willing to spread my wings a bit, and I still consider Wildstorm to be indie, even though it's clearly owned by DC. Yeah, let's tackle it.
All right. So next week it'll be the Wildstorm issues 1 through 6. I want to thank everybody for showing up. This will be the first show for DVS, but we hope to have a lot more in the future, as well as expanding coverage into conventions that we can reach. Thank you very much for tuning in. I am Jeremy.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Joanna.
To work on that order. Have a great one, everybody.